You're listening to Sharing Things, a new University of Edinburgh podcast from the Alumni Relations team about the university community, which we want to get to know a little better. Hi, I'm Amalia. I'm a fourth-year student, and I'm the host of this podcast. In Sharing Things, I talk to alumni, staff, and students about their stories. Guests have all been asked to bring an object as a starting point for discussion, and the object can be anything important or significant. It can represent an event, person, decision, experience, or it can just remind them of something. Let's see where this takes us. In this episode, you will meet Miller and Hadrien Espiard. Anne is a writer and producer. After graduating in 2009 with a degree in sociology and politics, she has become the tartan elf and finds fun facts for the BBC quiz show QI for a living. She's also a producer on Radio 4's Museum of Curiosity. Hadrien is a fourth-year law student from Montreal, Canada. As co-president of Edinburgh University North American Society, he brings together fellow students in cultural and social pursuits. He also likes running, and he likes lists. We talk about must-dos in Edinburgh, Starbucks and the CIA, internet wormholes, weird knowledge, and more. Welcome, Hadrien and Anne, to Sharing Things. I thought that I would start with asking you about your objects. What have you brought to the studio today, and why?
I have brought the Edinburgh Students' Association Guide to Edinburgh City 2009. It was the first thing I ever edited.
Really?
Yeah. So this was, I don't know how many of these you still have, but when I was at uni, so I graduated politics and sociology in 2009, and I did a lot of societies, and I did the student newspaper, and there's a student magazine, which was called Hype, and then became called The Voice. Do you have a student magazine now?
I haven't heard of The Voice.
That was 2009, so it was 10 years ago. So I was doing a lot of writing things, and then this job came up. They were doing various publications sort of in the freshers pack, so you used to get like an alternate prospectus and like information about the city, and they were doing this book about the city, and me and my friend Lee, who edited the paper, did it together. So it was like a guide to all the things we loved in Edinburgh, so new students could like not be dropped in the deep end, like here are some places to start exploring, because it's such a great city and there's so much to see. And yeah, it was really fun to make, so I thought I'd bring it.
Did you base it on like personal experiences, or?
Yeah, we tried to sort of make it sort of set George Square, King's Buildings, this side of town. So there was stuff around, but a lot of like stuff in Newington and Arthur's Seat, and information about the buses and trips you can go on. I think with Edinburgh, there's so much to do in the city and there's so much outside, but if you don't know, it's quite overwhelming because there's so many, you can go everywhere. Like I had a flatmate when I was in first year who was from Australia, and every weekend it seemed she would go somewhere in Europe because for her it was suddenly really, really close. Whereas for us, we were like, wow, we're in Edinburgh, where can we go from here? And it's just the scales are so different. Because you came from, is it Canada you grew up in?
So I grew up in Montreal, and driving 2, 3, 4 hours, like I would drive 2 hours every weekend to go ski, 2.5 hours. And so driving 2.5 hours anywhere in Scotland gets you halfway across the country, and you get to somewhere like completely out of the city. Yeah. There's no cell service. So when my friend was like, oh, I don't know if I want to drive to Skye, it's like 5 hours. I'm like, well, you know, I've had friends who've driven that far for groceries before, so you can do it.
And also because you're already here, so you've not got the flight and then the drive. Like, well, we're here, so we might as well drive. But yeah, I think it's nice how many things there are to do. And so I really love puffins. And a couple of years ago, I went to the Isle of May, which is in the Forth, so you get the ferry across. And I'd never done that, and I love puffins. It's been there the whole time, and it's just nice to know what you can do. Is
there studenty stuff in there as well, like nightlife and?
No, this is mostly like the city and like simple stuff like top 20 things to do in Edinburgh. Have you done any of these?
Okay,
Adrian?
Let's see. I've done a lot of these.
Yeah, they're obviously hopefully still relevant.
Yeah, tell us what you've done. Tell us what you've, and also what you've done.
So I'll name things.
Yeah.
And then we'll see if we've done them. Edinburgh Castle, which I shouldn't have done. Apparently, it's bad luck.
No, there's a day where
you've done that.
I don't know if I believe in all
I've done
that,
Edinburgh
though.
Castle.
Oh, yeah, but before you graduated.
Oh, is there a myth? Is there a?
I mean, come on.
I did go before. I did go before I graduated, and I did graduate. So hopefully, I broke the curse.
Yeah, maybe that's why I'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll be alright.
Because you broke the curse. Arthur's Seat.
Yes, I was there yesterday.
Oh, good, nice. Mm-hmm. Were you guys in Pollock Halls?
I was in Pollock.
Because it's right next to us.
Which is so nice. Like I would go, if I had a late start, I would go in the morning to Arthur's Seat, which was really, really cool. And then one day, being the artsy first year that I thought I was, I decided to do a time-lapse of the sunrise from Arthur's Seat. But I thought that a time-lapse was just an accelerated video, which it isn't, of course. So I spent an hour up there in December filming the sunrise. No. And then I realized that if you do that, you have way too many frames. And so you have to take about every fourth frame out.
Yeah.
But that you have to download the video as frames, and so I had an hour of video.
How long did it take you?
So I just never did it.
But we had some friends who went to see the sun set on Arthur's Seat. Like, oh, what a romantic date! The sun sets. You're left there in pitch black at the top.
Yeah.
And they hadn't clocked this. They didn't have a torch. They just thought, oh, that'd be romantic.
And that's when you get people who get rescued in the helicopters.
Yeah.
That's always funny. I'm like, it's such a small hill, but
you can get lost.
So did you gather like the facts for this?
Yeah, this is my first sort of I say book, it's a booklet, but it was, we were really pleased with it. So basically Lee used to run the paper and I ran the magazine. So for this we basically put a call out that who wants to be involved, and then we had different people doing like different sections. So there was like where to stay, nightlife, entertaining, sightseeing, eating, and then we sort of would edit and make sure we had enough information. But I brought it because I think what's so great about Edinburgh and uni is that you can just do so many things. Like you can go and make your time lapse and you learn, okay, this is why I do it next time. Yeah. But there's so much open to you. And when you're at school, you're very young and it's very structured. And when you leave, you've got things to do. And when you're a student, you can start podcasts. You can go to the Isle of Mull. You can go wherever you want. And I think I got a lot of fun by just things that I would never have thought I did. I ran the Tango Dancing Society for a year. I don't dance. Do you do societies?
Yeah, so in first year, you sign up for everything.
Yeah.
And then you end up doing none of it. So I did judo for 2 months, I think. And so it was twice a week, and I would end at 7:30, which was like kind of a social handicap in halls. So I was like, and then I was too tired to do anything, so I was just pass out. I would just pass out after judo, and I would smell so bad. So judo didn't last too long, and then I joined UNAS, of which I'm now co-president, which is fun. Which is the North American Society. And I joined it because I don't know how this happened. I went to a school with a graduating class of 60. So
60?
60, yeah. A small school. And on the committee, there were already 2 people from my high school and 2 other people who had essentially grown up in the same neighborhood that I had in Montreal.
Yeah.
And now we have 4 people from Montreal who are on the committee.
This is the Montreal Club.
So it turned into the Montreal Club a little bit. But so that was quite nice. It was more jarring than I thought to come to the UK. And I do say the UK because obviously Edinburgh, when you're a student, it's not just Scottish students. There's a lot of students from around England and Wales.
And Ireland.
And Northern Ireland, of course.
Yeah. Just things being different, everything's different.
So everything was much more, and the way people interact is different. And so it was more jarring than I thought it was going to be. And so it was really nice, even though it was just once a week, and I would see them, of course, outside of the meetings, but the regularity of being back home, essentially, for 1 hour a week at the very least. It was really cool. Like when we closed the door to the meeting room, it was like I didn't feel like I was in Edinburgh at all.
Yeah, that must be so nice.
So I had the duality kind of in the first year.
How far is that flight-wise, Montreal, Edinburgh?
So there are no direct flights. So
really?
I go through London.
Okay.
Typically,
or
I've done Frankfurt as well. So the initial flight is 5 hours, and then which actually isn't too bad, and then it's like another hour from there, and then it depends how long you have to wait at the airport. But I kind of like airports.
Yeah.
It's the only place you can drink a beer at 8 a.m. and no one looks at you weird.
That is true. They're like, he has a flight.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
They don't know what time zone you're from. So my item is a painting, I guess is the best way. It's a display picture for a podcast, a now defunct, I'm sad to say, podcast that I ran with my best friend Eric, who is from Montreal. But it was painted by my now girlfriend, then not girlfriend, Cecilia, which is quite funny. So the name of the title of the podcast is Lists and Other Things. And here you'll see kind of how would you describe these?
Representation?
Yeah, representation.
Kind of cartoon, like caricature-esque.
Yeah,
faces.
of Eric and I. Eric has glasses. That's his defining feature. and I have blonde hair.
And Eric
That's
is
mine.
your co-host.
And Eric is the host, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just a talking head. I'm a nobody on the podcast. And there's a banjo, because I play the banjo, or try to. There's a hockey stick, because we're from Canada and we watch hockey together. There's a maple leaf, again, from Canada. Piano, because Eric plays the piano, and we both study law. So there's a gavel right here.
Nice.
And I really like this. Obviously because of the person who painted it, it's quite nice, but also because it kind of ties in, again, what I was saying with the North American Society, where I have both Montreal and Edinburgh, which are two places now that define me in like incalculable ways. And so I have this with me at all times, which is kind of nice.
When did you do the podcast? How long ago was this?
So we did this podcast, I want to say for a little bit over a year. And this was the summer leading up to uni, and then throughout our first year.
That's really early
uni.
for podcasting.
Yeah.
Because the whole podcast, there's lots of podcasts now, but 3 years ago there were not very many. So you were like one of the early ones.
Pioneers of the podcast.
Yeah, we can claim that.
And we got an RSS feed set up and everything, and so it's on iTunes and it's on the podcast app, all this stuff. And what's
yeah,
to listen?
Check it.
So what was it about?
Okay, so Listen to Other Things was pretty vague because Eric and I just like talking. And so we kind of wanted to have a structure that just allowed us to talk. But so we would find a list every week. And so it could be a food related list or a list of things that we want to do for the upcoming year, or a list of people we saw this week that we want to be like in whichever way. And so it would kind of lead to some tangents, and we had some segments. So I would have a random Wikipedia list of the week, which I really enjoyed. An example of one of these Wikipedia lists was military terms, which I think, like, born out of necessity, are hilarious. You know what I mean? Because it's like kind of dark humor, and there's one that I still use now is sneakers or shoes. They call them Go Fasters.
Nice.
It's so stupid, but so funny. Yeah, just things like that.
What made you curious about these lists?
Well, Eric thought it would be a good idea because when I'm trying to write a paper or when I'm studying for an exam and I give up, I just go on Wikipedia random. And he's like, well, if you're going to do that anyways, we might as well
Let's use it.
Yeah, we might as well use it in the podcast, which is good because I didn't feel like I was wasting my time anymore. It was for something.
That's awesome. So you like an interesting fact?
Oh, I love interesting facts, which is, from what I gather, what you do for a living. So
yes.
I figured this would be...
Should I say what I do for a living?
Yes.
Yeah, so I work for Quite Interesting Limited, which is a company that, among other things, makes the BBC Two show QI, which is all about interesting facts. So we spend a lot of time on random corners of the internet reading about things, which is really fun because it's like every day we get to learn new things. When I was at uni, I was a cashier in a bank, and it was in a way a very good job because it worked around term time and I got to learn how money works. But I would be, when I was quiet, I would be literally reading their internet, being like, what can I learn? Like, what is there here? Not that much when you're on a bank's intranet. I learned a lot about their policies, but that was it. Whereas now it's like, we go down wormholes and find strange facts, and then they come out in different ways. So we do this TV program for BBC Two. We make a Radio 4 program called The Museum of Curiosity. For the last 7 years, we've done a fact book for Christmas, which is just about between 1,200 2024 interesting facts all linked together. So it's a real fun thing to put together. And my current favourite thing, which is in so QI, each series is themed by a letter, and we just filmed series Q, so all the facts are to do with words beginning with the letter Q. And there's a lot of Quebec in there. And my favourite thing, which is in, so I found out that the James Bond theme tune.
Yeah.
So that was the guy who wrote that. He reused that. He actually originally wrote that not for James Bond, but it was a song about a man with an unlucky sneeze.
Wait, really?
You can find the original online. It's the best thing you'll have ever heard.
And it's the same tune.
It's the same song, but not as dramatic. Like this, you can hear the tune, and the lyrics are about how he was born with an unlucky sneeze, and that's why his father fell in the village well and drowned. Like, it's so surreal, but it's that James Bond going underneath it. So I recommend searching James Bond original. It's very funny.
Yeah, that might be my new ringtone.
Yeah,
I think.
The unlucky sneeze.
Yeah, the unlucky sneeze. This is a pretty vague question, but what's the research like? Because I guess the onus is on you to fact check quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like, if I read a fact and it's incorrect, it doesn't really harm anyone. But if
we get letters.
Yeah.
If we get it.
I bet, you get fact checking done for you after the fact.
So with the TV show, there are about maybe a dozen of us researching for it, and then about half a dozen script writers. And so we all sort of check each other's stuff as we go, because we've done it long enough, most of us now, that you can just tell when some people say things like, oh, that's been debunked. The most annoying one is you come running in like, I found this amazing fact, and someone's like, yeah, we did that in series B, and you're like, oh no. So, but you think we'll run out, and then there's always more facts and more interesting things to uncover. Like, so you find the bits that you know, and then you look further and you find more. So we're all sort of checking each other's. We try and make sure there are two sources, but even that as a rule is not very helpful, because if somebody has copied it from a blog and someone else copies it, you've got two sources, but they're not very helpful. Whereas if you've spoken to, if we have a mollusk expert and they tell you a fact they found from their research, you trust that as one source, but like they've done it themselves, they know their stuff, so you would trust that more. So it's a really good way of, especially now there's so much misinformation, it's good to know like what do you trust. One of the problems now I think is with Twitter, I so often see things going past and they sort of lodge in your head and you think, oh, I must check that before I tell someone, because you don't know if it was the BBC News account or just somebody, you know, your friend who might be very smart but might have just heard it from somebody else. And so knowing what actually is concrete information. But we also have very eagle-eyed viewers, and we actually love when people have very, very specific knowledge. Sometimes we just can't know things and they'll know better than us, and that's grand. My favourite one, someone once wrote in and we'd done a question about a Rolls-Royce engine, a car engine, and there was a video in the background of an engine going round, and they wrote in and said, just so you know, and I'm going to get this the wrong way round, so if you work with Rolls-Royce engines, please don't I'm very sorry, but they said that either we had them going counterclockwise, it should have been clockwise, or vice versa. And they said that our engine was going one way, but Rolls-Royce engines only go the other way, so we had the wrong engine. And we were like, oh, that is so brilliant, because it's a fact we didn't know.
We didn't realize
they
went
though. And they said it politely, and you're like, that's fantastic knowledge, because obviously somebody who studies, I know, blackbirds for their PhD will know more than us who's read one book about them, or a couple of, or spoken to one person. So that extra knowledge is always, it's sort of finding where it is and trying to get to it.
How do you find these facts? Like, where do you go on the internet?
You just sort of start. So you sort of get inspiration from anywhere, really. I think one thing about everyone in QI is we've all got slightly magpie brains, so we're never, it's not like you shut your brain off at 9 o'clock, you're like, right, time to find a fact. We're always sort of looking, so we're really fun to go on holiday with, because we're always like, that looks interesting. So I was watching a quiz show once, and I think it was The Chase, and there was a question about what was the most recent symbol added to the Morse code alphabet, and I was like, oh, I don't know this, and the answer was the @ sign, because Morse code is still used by like people who do it to recreate it, and people do it for a hobby, and they want to be able to share their email addresses with their new friends, and so they needed an @ symbol to say, so you can email me, so we don't have to do all our messages through Morse. And that was from watching a quiz show. There's one fact in one of our books, which is that the word stress is desserts backwards. I found that on a greetings card in the post office when I was waiting in the queue. But I think with the internet, it's you pick a topic. So if it's Q, maybe you take out Quebec, and so you start looking at sort of the tourist board for there to see what's interesting. You look at rough guides to the city, you look at history, you look at news articles, and you just sort of start, once you start doing that, generally something will pop up that catches your eye. And so in some jobs, if you were to be distracted by a sidebar and click along, you would be in trouble. We're allowed to do that, which is great.
This is my dream job.
It's very fun.
Where do you go when
I'm wide-eyed
when you like go look for random knowledge?
Well, so this is a question to sort of answer your question. I spend too much time on Reddit, like way too much time. And I'm sure, as you'll know, like a very common Ask Reddit question is, what's a fun fact, or what's a surprising fact, or sad, happy, put any adjective fact. So I get a lot of random facts through there. And then also, I don't think it's intentional misinformation, but because you get so little information, like the thing that makes it to the top, the information that makes it to the top is short and easy to read, so you don't get the full story. But so then you can follow up. I was wondering, because your work is based on providing facts that people don't know, and there's like an influx of facts through, like, say Reddit or Twitter or like anywhere, even Wikipedia.
BuzzFeed, Mental Fluff, which are all great, but now you get 20 facts that do this.
And so, or how do you deal with now this influx of
trying
facts?
Try to find
the right ones and keep it interesting for people.
I think so. For QI, the TV program, we have a really, really long research period. So we make 16 episodes, and we research for, I would say, about 6 months, 10 of us. Looking for stuff. So if you wanted to make a program or podcast about, say, animals, you could get on the internet, and within half an hour you could find 15 really cool facts, but they'd probably be ones that you've seen quite a few times. The one that I love, but I see it everywhere, is that otters hold hands when they sleep so they don't drift apart, which is the most so nice, but because it's so lovely, I see it everywhere, and it's great, but the odds of someone seeing it already are higher. And what you don't want to do is have something where it's, you say, I've got this great thing, and everyone knows everything you're about to say. So either it's something unusual, it's a spin on it, or something where people aren't already looking. So if you've got time, the best way is old books out of the library, or not even old ones, new ones. You can't read them quickly, and the stuff you get in there is really rewarding. So I remember doing a column once about mythical creatures, and took down this book from the library, and it was about mythical creatures and like legends and monsters, and I opened it, and it hadn't been opened in so long that this big cloud of dust came out the top and like blew up. So no one had read it in ages.
Like from a movie.
And you just think, this is fantastic. And so you sort of dig through and find this information. And one that I found in a book, and I found out later it was on Reddit, but I did find it in a book, and it was about a history of London Zoo, because I really love animal things. I was reading about London Zoo, which is amazing, by the way. London Zoo, they took one of the monkeys there by bus from Bristol, all the way they got the animals to the zoo, and I think the elephants walked through the city, and you used to be allowed to get in for free if you brought a dog or a cat with you to feed to the lions.
Oh.
I know, like, so, and I read that and I was like, I've never heard that before. That's like awful, but also like
makes sense.
So bizarre.
So bizarre.
And then I can't remember if I found it online after we'd done QI or if it was before, but it definitely is online as well. And like, that's fine. You want facts to be out there. And also you can't really claim them as your own. So in the office, we have a slight, not rivalry. So if we all heard the same fact now, it's like, whose fact is it? And I was once at a lunch with some of my colleagues and some friends, and one of the friends mentioned very casually, oh, do you know where the highest point of the Alps is? Do you know which country the highest point of the Alps is?
I want to say Mont Blanc.
Good shout.
That's that's my guess.
Italy?
I think it's in the Netherlands because somebody climbed the mountain, cut the top off and put it in a museum in the Netherlands.
No.
Yeah. And so we were both went, oh my gosh. And I saw my friend, my colleagues.
This is gotcha journalism.
But they got their phones out. I was like, no, they're typing it on the boards. And so we were all trying to get it on first because we were like, such a good fact. I think it's the Netherlands. But yeah, it's in a museum. It's not on a mountain. So it's at the top of the mountain.
Can I ask, what is your favorite fact?
Oh, my current favourite, has been for a while, is that CIA headquarters has a Starbucks and they're not allowed to write people's names on the cups.
Oh, yeah.
Because and they were like, oh, we said they could give a fake name, but it made them really edgy.
Really?
Yeah. There's so many rules about it. Like, they can't say Starbucks CIA on the receipt, because if you find that, it's going to be like, oh, you were at the CIA today, were you? So it's called something like Store One.
It's just so funny that there's a Starbucks this.
They're going to need coffee.
They probably need coffee more than most.
Yeah. But that's just so bizarre. Like, when I think about the CIA, I just think of, I don't know, some anonymous thing.
Yeah. And also what's great is people, so say we all work for the CIA, we wouldn't be allowed to tell each other because that's a secret. Before we're in the Starbucks, we're like, oh, hey, you come here too. I just think it's such a fun idea.
So where did you find that?
I think it was a long read online about the Starbucks and the CIA, and I was just like, this is the best sentence I've ever read, and I want to know everything about it.
Yeah. What about you, Hadrien?
You know the thing that happens when someone asks you your favorite fun fact?
Completely blank.
And also, I'm being pitted against someone who reads
I do
fun
it for a
facts
living.
for a living.
Do you want one of my other favorite facts?
Yeah, please. Buy me some time.
Baby puffins are called pufflings.
Oh, I do like that.
Adorable.
Oh, yeah.
I do like a puffin. But I once, I was on a train and I think I didn't have very good signal. I was like, I need to find something interesting to put on. And I heard this kid reading jokes to their parent. And he was like, what cheese is made backwards? And I was thinking, I didn't realize he was doing jokes, that was a fact. And I was like, what cheese is made backwards? And it's Edam.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, that's amazing. It's spelled backwards.
Oh,
isn't that good?
Oh, that is.
Yeah. So I got that from a 7-year-old on a train. So I will find information anywhere.
So your brain is just always like in
always
tune
looking.
towards like, that's really cool.
Also in novels and films, I'm always like, is that true? Because it's really good if it's true. So I'll like pause and then go and check. I'll like make a note to myself.
What I find really interesting is the fact that the solution to a technology problem, which is that people are inundated with facts, is to go back to old books that no one opens. So it's weird that you would have like, to
find new things.
Yeah, you would have to go back to old books that no one's reading anymore because facts are so readily available.
Yeah, or we go very deep into so if you go, I mean, it's places like the BBC News website, Wikipedia, National Geographic are all amazing, but they're quite widely read. So if you sort of follow the leads, if they mention an academic and you go and look at their page on their university website or look at the articles they've written, you suddenly find yourself in a much more interesting place. Like the NASA website's amazing. It's sort of going down wormholes and following what looks interesting, then trying to find what there is. And some things are just not. My boss believes that everything is interesting, but there are definitely some things we looked at for hours and hours. And like, if there is interesting, it's a long way down this tunnel.
Yeah.
What are you guys curious about right now?
Well, that's a good question.
Oh, that is a really good question. I'm trying to think what I've been. So I think I've been talking about this a lot with my friend. I was just on a bike trip across France with my friend, which was really nice. And because we were just using our phones for navigation and for music sometimes when the going was really tough, we weren't on our phones ever, and we were sleeping in the woods, like which was nice, but not so nice sometimes.
Depends how good your tent is.
Yeah, just no tent, just sleeping bags.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no tent.
Wait, so how does that work? Like, do you just
I think you get cold.
I know. Yeah, but what about bugs?
Oh, there were so many.
Oh,
I was an open buffet, basically.
You're in a sleeping bag.
Yeah, I had a sleeping bag.
Just a sleeping bag.
We just had it, and so.
Why did you not bring a tent? Sorry.
So we were biking. We had.
Honestly, yes.
We had just 2 little satchels. Is satchel the right word?
Yeah, backpack.
Yeah. But no, they were on the side of the bikes.
Panniers?
Yeah. Which is funny because that's a French word, but they wouldn't say that in France.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Satchel?
They would say sacoche.
Satchel is, I think, is like a school bag. Like
Yeah.
a shoulder
Yeah.
bag.
Indiana Jones has one.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so as a result, we were just talking. I mean, we were talking more than you would talk to someone, you know, on a daily basis. Like even if you work with someone in an office, you don't talk to them that often.
No.
But because we were biking 8 hours a day and then having meals together and sleeping next to one another, it was just like, you know, full exposure to each other, which was really nice. Because we've been friends since we were 5 years old, so we know each other really, really well. But we were talking about interests, and I'm really happy that I'm studying law. I genuinely do find it interesting. I had to convince myself a little bit at the beginning, but I think I've gaslit myself enough now that I actually believe it, which is good. But I think I would be doing linguistics.
Yeah.
And like that's something I'm really curious about. And I don't know if you've ever seen the YouTube page WikiTongues, where you have people who speak. It can be a common language like French or Spanish, whichever, you know, a common language. But you also have really seldom used languages that people record and upload videos of themselves speaking.
So that preserve them.
So yeah, exactly. So preserve the tonality, and they're not necessarily saying anything interesting, or you don't always have English subtitles, but it can be really interesting to hear the way people speak and the similarities between people who live completely opposite ends of the world.
Yeah.
So you can have like a language spoken in Indonesia that sounds similar to something spoken, you know, in the north of Canada, for instance. And so that's really, really cool. And so we're all like, humans all have the same, like to a certain extent, the same vocal cords and mouth and ability to produce sound, but the way in which
how we use them.
Yeah, the way in which we use them, and if it's developed as a result of our environment, like I find that so interesting. And when you're learning a language, you automatically learn culture as well.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
But that's awesome. But also what's interesting with that is on YouTube.
Yeah.
So when I came to uni in 2005, and I remember very clearly my friend saying, "Have you heard of this thing called YouTube?" So it didn't exist. There was hardly anything. There was some stuff on it, but not like there is now. And just how quickly that's changed.
Yeah.
Like when I was at school, we didn't have broadband. We had dial-up. And it's like, it's just how quickly that has given you more information, more facts, more access to things. It just reminded me as well, I can't remember which language it is, but there is a language that was going extinct, and the last person to speak it left alive was a parrot. Which is,
wait, really?
Yeah. But also on the phones, I think that is one thing with so much information everywhere. I think people are more aware now of how much time they're on their phones, because when they were new, it was like, oh, it's like we can play games, we can get information, we can contact at any time. And now we're like, oh no, we can be contacted any time. And it's much more like, I just been walking in Scotland, and we just turned our phones off. We needed them to navigate, but apart from that, we had them off. And it feels really strange because you're so used to having them in your hand now.
It used to be so much more innocent. Like, do you remember when it was just the apps where you could drink a beer or like
Play Snake?
Yeah, Play Snake.
Snake was amazing.
Yeah, and now
It's such a big part of our lives. You need to kind of make an active effort to like put it away.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
I have a fun YouTube and Norway fact, because you are Norwegian, Amalia.
Yes.
Norway is among one of the few countries, or multiple countries, a multitude of countries, where YouTube is the most popular website.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
People spend the most time on YouTube in Norway.
Yeah, I'm probably one of those people. What's something you're curious about?
Well, we're about to do QI series R, so currently anything beginning with R I'm very curious about, because I've got 16 shows to fill. But yeah, just always finding more things to read, more things to watch, more things to know about, because I think that's what's so great, is that it can either be very depressing or very optimistic that you're never going to finish the things. Like, you won't read all the books, but equally you won't run out of good books. So it's sort of finding them and things like that. And yeah, seeing what comes next, I guess. What's next? 2020?
2020.
I have one last question for you guys. So if you could associate your object with one word, what would it be?
Is it cheating to say Edinburgh? I think I'm going to go opportunity.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's a book full of all the things that you can do in the city, and there are also tons that aren't in that book that you can find yourself. And I think, so I grew up in quite a small town, and coming to Edinburgh was just like, first of all, the fact that you could buy food after 5 o'clock was incredible. The fact the buses came in 3 minutes, not 40, I was just like, what? This is amazing. And I think, it's just, like I say, everybody's Edinburgh is different. You sort of find your own way around. And there's things that maybe everybody enjoys, like there'll be things we've all like been to the same restaurant or walked on the same street, but there's also so many things that like I'll have done that you won't, and you'll have done but you won't, and vice versa. I think that's really, really fun. I
guess so. I'm not going to put too much thought into it. The first word that popped out was home, because I have a little bit of everyone, and I have some things that define me here, and I take it with me wherever I go. So
do you have it on the wall in your room?
Yeah, so I have it just on my desk there. which is quite nice.
And it's your best friend and your girlfriend as well. That's really nice.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's pretty cool to have.
You need to paint her on the back so she can be on it too.
Well, I can't. I would ruin it. I really do have the motor skills of a chimpanzee, but maybe she can paint herself.
Thank you for being on Sharing Things, Hadrien and Anne.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you for listening to Sharing Things. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play to catch our next episode. Be sure to visit our website to read more about our guests and other episodes at www.ed.ac.uk/sharingthingspodcast with little dashes between the words. You can let us know what you think on the website or by using the hashtag #SharingThingsPodcast. See you next time!